Uh, and then I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the slides as well. Can everyone see that okay? Yeah, thank you. Okay. So hi, I'm Nicola. Um, Thank you for signing up for the webinar. We did a similar webinar around this time last year, where I had quite a few people that were getting new puppies around Christmas time, and they had loads of questions for me, and I just thought it'd just be easier to do like one video to talk to them, explaining the answers to all of them, because a lot of people have the same sort of answers, and I was sort of going around giving out the same kind of advice as well. So the advice that I'm going to give you will probably kind of apply to lots and lots of different things as well. So the idea really is it's for if you've already got a new puppy, or if you're planning on getting a puppy. So often there's kind of the whole like puppies aren't for just for Christmas, puppies are for life sort of thing. But I do meet quite a lot of people who Christmas is actually quite a good time to get a puppy, especially if you're working in education and you've got 2 weeks off for the holidays, or you've just managed to take some time out of work because it's a particularly quiet time during the Christmas period. So it's not necessarily a terrible time to actually get a puppy if you've got a couple of weeks where you can be spending time with them and getting them settled in and getting them into a routine. So it's just about preparing them for what's going to be going on kind of going forward really with them. It doesn't matter what time of year you get them, as long as you're prepared and ready to go. So I'm going to go through a few of my sort of main ideas, and I'm going to try and keep it to less than half an hour. And then I'll try and leave some time at the end for any questions as well. So it's up to you what you want to do with questions. I'm more than happy for you to wait till the end, and then I can unmute you and you can ask questions. Or if you'd rather, you can then just put them in the chat box as well. So you can put any questions down there at the bottom, and then I can come to them at the end when I get round to it. So we'll get stuck in. So these are sort of the 5 things that I'm going to try and cover. So we're going to cover crate training, which doesn't just apply at Christmas, it applies all year round, but a crate can be an absolute godsend around Christmas time. We're going to talk about routines, and I'm going to talk a little bit about puppy sleep as well. We're going to talk about how to puppy-proof your Christmas. We're going to talk about visitor greetings, and we're also going to talk a little bit about kind of common, sorry, I'm just letting somebody in, about common sort of poisons and dangers and things to be watching out for around Christmas time as well. So let's get started. So we're going to go through our crate training first of all. So I'm not sure sort of who's using a crate and who maybe isn't using a crate. I think as a puppy training tool, they are a really, really useful idea. So a lot of people, even sort of nowadays with crates being more common, are very worried about introducing a crate in terms of thinking, oh, it's cruel, we're going to use it as a punishment, the puppy thinks it's been naughty, that sort of thing. And really, it's not used in that way at all, or it shouldn't be used in that way at all. The way we would use a crate is the crate is almost, it's their bedroom. To think of it as their room, it's their space. So it's where they sleep, it's where they chill out and where they relax. It's where they have a little bit of quiet time. It's their safe place to go to. And if we can get them happy and settled in a crate for overnight and for nap times and for times when they're left home alone, it just eliminates a lot of different worries that we have with our puppies. So if they're in the crate, it doesn't matter what else we've got outside of that crate, whether it's shoes on the floor, or whether there's a bin they can get into, or wires, or around Christmas time, whether we've got decorations and a tree up. If they're in that crate, they're nice and safe and they can't get to any of those things. So it makes our lives a lot easier as well, because then we don't have to be thinking about, right, what do we need to move out of the puppy's way before we leave the house, or before we go upstairs or into a different room. So as a safety tool, it's really useful from that point of view. The other thing, which it's useful for as well, is for when you've got visitors coming round. And often at Christmas time, we've either got people coming over to visit us, or we're going visiting people. And if you're going visiting people, I would definitely recommend that you take the crate with you, because that's a nice familiar place for them to settle down. So if you're around at somebody's house, if you're planning on spending more than a couple of hours there, I would take the crate with me, and I would set it up somewhere similar to where you've got it set up at home. And that way they've got somewhere where they can go to for a nap then. Puppies are very bad at recognizing that they're tired and taking themselves off for naps. And what they'll do instead is they will start getting silly and overtired and overexcited. And the normal sort of behaviours that we see then increasing are things like nipping and biting and barking and jumping up and scratching and digging and chewing and everything that you don't really want your puppies to do. A lot of those will happen because they're overtired. And if you think you've taken them round to somebody's house and it's new and exciting, there's different people there, and it's all very new and stimulating for them, there's no way they're going to go, oh, actually, I'm tired, I need a nap, I'm going to take myself off to a corner. So what we can do using the crate is we can implement that. We can think, right, you've been awake for an hour and a half or a couple of hours, you've started getting really bitey, you probably need to settle down for a nap now. And then we can use the crate to make sure that they're getting some quality sleep time. And it works the same at home as well. So if you're having people round, I would use it in exactly the same way. I would use it so that once they're ready for a nap, I will pop them in it. Sometimes it can be quite overwhelming for them, depending on the age of your puppy and depending on how much socialization they've done with visitors coming to the house or being in other people's houses. It can be quite a lot for them when there's people coming around, and they might just need that crate there as a place to retreat to, where it's getting a little bit too much for them, especially if you've got children as well, because often with puppies, children are really excited to meet the new puppy, and they want to play with them and interact and stroke them and cuddle them. And our puppies have to tolerate a lot. Whereas if we put them in the crate and shut the door, children can't bother them anymore, or kind of over enthusiastic visitors can't bother them anymore, because the rule is they're in the crate and they're separate. So you can almost use that as a bit of an excuse as well to give them a little bit of space and move them away from people that maybe are getting a little bit too much for them. The other thing I would also use the crate for as well is when you're letting people in and out of the house as well. With the best will in the world, if it's Christmas time and it's busy and you've maybe had a couple of mulled wines, you're not maybe going to be on it with the thresholds to the house as you normally are with opening and closing the door. And it doesn't take much for one family member to go, oh, I'm just nipping out to the car to get some presents, and the door's left open and the puppy runs out. So when people are coming in and out of the house, I would use the crate for that as well. You know they're secure then. It doesn't matter if people are leaving the door open or if cars are pulling up on the driveway or outside the house. You can wait until everyone's in and the doors are shut, and then you can let the puppy out. And if they're a little bit wary, I would get people to sit down first of all for greetings. So get them to sit down first, and then the puppy can then approach in their own time, rather than it being everyone towering over the puppy and really excited to say hello and completely overwhelming them. So the crate can be useful for that as well. So location of the crate. I find that there's sort of two types of puppies. Some puppies like it out of the way in a quiet corner. Some puppies like it to be kind of right in the middle of things, so they don't feel like they're missing out. So sometimes it is a little bit of trial and error. I quite like to have the crate in a place where, going forward in the future, I would have the dog's bed. So if you want to have the dog's bed in like the hallway, I would probably put the crate there. If it's going to be in a corner of the living room, I'd probably put the crate there instead. Make sure it's nice and cozy, so lots of blankets and toys. Make sure there's a water bottle in there as well. You can get water bottles that you actually clip onto the side of crates on the inside, because often if you put a water bowl on the floor of the crate when they're moving around or digging blankets around, they'll just knock the water bowl over, and then obviously the bedding's drenched then, isn't it? So you can actually get a bowl that attaches on the inside of the crate. So I'd recommend getting one of those so that you don't have so many spillages. But yeah, make sure they've got some water in there. Lots of treats and anything that's nice I would do in there. So if you've got a really food motivated dog, if they really like their meal times, I would be feeding them their meals in there. So every time it's a meal time, the food bowl goes in the crate first of all. Every time they get a nice chew or a treat, that goes in the crate first of all. And it doesn't matter if they pick it up and then they bring it out of the crate. The point is that all these nice things appear in the crate. So it's a really nice place for them to be. And even things like just hiding treats in there every now and then. So hide treats in there when they're not looking, so that then when they walk past, they're like, oh, what's that smell? And then they go in and think, oh, brilliant, the magic crates produce some treats for me again. And it just all kind of puts together this really like positive picture of the crate is a really nice place to be. If it's particularly cold in the area of the house where you're putting it, you might want to put extra blankets in. And I quite like covering the crate as well. So like a towel or a blanket over the top of the crate. It just makes it feel more cozy for them, more like a little bit of a den. And obviously then any kind of body heat that they're generating is going to be trapped a little bit more in the crate. So it's going to be a bit snugger for them. And what I'd normally do at night time or when they're having naps is I'd completely cover the crate as well. So especially if you've got visitors around, if they can see out of one side of the crate, they might feel like they're missing out because they can see everyone, there on the other side. Whereas if you cover it up, they can't see what's going on so much. Obviously, they're still aware of it, but having that covering the crate up as almost a visual cue to say, right, it's time for you to settle down and go to sleep now. So that's my first tip for your puppy Christmas is getting yourself started with the crate. And what ties quite nicely into that one is my second one, which is rest and routine. So this is something that always surprises people when I'm talking about this, and it's how much sleep puppies actually need. So we think that adult dogs need between 16 and 20 hours sleep a day. So that's a fully grown adult dog. So as you can imagine, a puppy's going to need quite a bit more than that. So it's not unusual for a puppy to have a day where they pretty much sleep for 24 hours if they're growing or if they're teething and they're particularly tired or if they've had a couple of busy days. I would be aiming for at least 18 hours of sleep a day. But some days they might need more. It might be that one day they have 16 hours, but the day after that, they're then going to need 20 hours. And the reason that's so important goes back to what I mentioned before about them when they're overtired, them not knowing that they're tired and not taking themselves off for a nap. So the sorts of behaviours that you see are often the result of being overtired. So anything like nipping, like attention seeking behaviours like barking, digging, and all of those sorts of things, they're normally just because a puppy is tired. So if you know that they've been to the toilet, they've had something to eat, they've got access to some water, they've been entertained for a bit, and they start doing those silly behaviours, and you think, actually, you've probably not had a nap for, an hour and a half, a couple of hours. It's probably just that they are overtired and they need to settle down for some sleep. I quite like getting them into a routine as well. And this is really going to be useful at Christmas as well, because obviously our routines are a little bit all over the place, but it's going to be very beneficial for you and your puppies if you can try and stick to that routine, even on the days when you're doing different things. Because if they know that they're expected to have a nap at a certain time and expected to have meals at certain times, then they'll know that the times in between are when they're going to be settling down. So this is kind of like a bit of an idea of a brief sort of routine that you might want to follow. My sort of general rule is I would do an activity first and then a meal and then a nap afterwards. So you're not exercising them on a full tummy, which can cause stomach issues. They're doing some sort of activity first, whether it's training or play or a walk. Then they're having their food. You'll probably need to do another toilet break after that before putting them down for a nap in their crate. But they're tired and they've got a full tummy then, so they're going to be better set up then to want to settle down and sleep for a nap. So I would try and kind of roughly plan your routine around that. Obviously, you're not always going to be getting up at the same time over Christmas time, or you might be staying up a little bit later. But if you're staying with that general pattern, that will be really helpful, because they will automatically then be cued for that behavior. They'll think, well, I've had some exercise and I've had something to eat, and they'll start feeling sleepy. Then it'll be easier to get them down for a nap then as well. So yeah, a little bit of a routine, making sure that they're getting plenty of sleep as well. It's hard to it's hard to kind of implement that sometimes. And what I find a lot of people will do as well is they'll keep puppies awake for longer to tire them out. So the evenings can be a key time for this. So if you find that their behaviour is worse in the evening, so say 6, 7, 8 p.m. onwards, they're starting, that's when they're running around, jumping on and off the sofa, or that's when they're starting being really nippy and bitey. It's possibly that actually they should be asleep by then. Um, and I meet lots of people where what they'll do is they'll try and keep the puppy awake till sort of 10 or 11 o'clock at night in the hope that then they're going to sleep through till the morning and you're not going to have a disturbed night. But what happens then is you just end up with 2 or 3 hours where they're really horrible because they're overtired. And actually, they should probably be going down for a sleep and having a couple of hours sleep much earlier than that. So if they're getting up, say, at 7 in the morning, you probably don't want them going down for a sleep much later than 9 o'clock, I would say. Obviously, they're not going to sleep through from 9 o'clock till 7 the next morning in the early days. You're still going to need toilet breaks in between that. But that should be their night time, really. So play and activity needs to be before that kind of bedtime, and then I would be popping them in the crate. If you've had dogs before and you've had adult dogs, what they normally do is that's what they'll do. So you'll do your walks and things like that, and then most dogs will have their meal in the evening. They'll maybe have like a bit of a playtime or training, and then they'll just snooze. So while you're kind of sat on the sofa watching your Christmas film, they'll be snoozing then anyway. And puppies are no different. Puppies still need to have that settling down time as well. So do keep an eye on that sleep time with them as well. Right. Okay. Right, we're going to talk about puppy proofing. So I don't know if anyone has anyone got any Christmas decorations up yet? No, me neither. Still only November, isn't it? So this was my Christmas tree in 2020. So my dog Pippi we'd got her at the end of October. So she was a few months old in December, and I still wanted to have a Christmas tree up. And we had a spare pen that someone had lent me. So this is what I did. And it worked really well because I didn't have to worry about her stealing any of the baubles or anything like that. So we had the tree was in a pen, and then all of the other decorations we had up high out of reach. There wasn't anything at floor level at all. And that meant that we could enjoy Christmas and still, it could still feel Christmassy without that worry, because otherwise we would have spent the entire of the Christmas period constantly taking things out of her mouth and chasing her around and telling her off, and it would have just involved a lot of unnecessary stress that we could really easily avoid. So if you are going to have a tree up, I would definitely still do it, but I would fence it off, or I would put it in a room away from the puppy, or I would have it high up so it's out of their reach. It's just not worth the trouble. Around Christmas time, we've got enough things to be thinking about in terms of cooking for people and making sure we've got the food shopping and wrapping presents, to be chasing puppies around with baubles. Vets are often very, very busy around Christmas time because of various sort of Christmas related incidents with puppies and adult dogs as well. So obviously any ornaments that are hanging from the tree, if they bite down on them, potentially that could cut their mouths. If they swallow anything, that could cause upset stomachs, and it could potentially cause blockages as well. We've often got more electrical cords out because we've got fairy lights and things. So we need to make sure they're well out of reach as well, or tucked out of the way in a corner where the puppy can't get to them. And also, I would keep presents out from under the tree until actually Christmas morning, unless it's fenced off. So I've heard many, many stories of wrapped selection boxes being left under Christmas trees, and you go out, and it's usually a Labrador. The Labrador comes and opens up the selection box and helps it filter a load of Christmas chocolate. Um, and if they do eat something that they shouldn't eat, just get them straight to the vets. If we can get them there quick enough, what the vets will do is they will give them an injection to make them feel sick, and then they'll just vomit it all up, which is obviously not very nice, but it's better for them to get it out rather than for them to have to try and digest it and for it to cause problems. But it can get very expensive. In my experience, my last dog was a Labrador, and we had several Christmases where we had to go to the vets because he'd eaten things that he shouldn't have. And it was always, you can guarantee, on Christmas Eve, in the evening, out of hours. So all of a sudden it doubles in price then as well. It can get very expensive if they start doing that sort of thing at Christmas. So yeah, things out of reach, making sure that if they're big enough to kind of get up to the Christmas table, the kitchen table, put things in the middle so they're well out of the way. And I'm going to go through some common Christmas poisons on my last point as well. Okay, so Christmas decorations we have covered. So visitors is quite a big one, it's quite a long one, and I have done a help sheet as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, I've done them the wrong way around. Possibly, yes, I've done them the wrong way around. I'll come back to the poisons then, we'll do visitors first. So there is, I'm going to do a handout on visitors as well, because there's lots of different bits and pieces to this. So there's two ways it can go when you've got visitors coming around. They can either get ridiculously overexcited, or they can be a little bit scared and overwhelmed. And either way, because they're still puppies and they're growing and they're kind of forming opinions about what they like and what they don't like, and whether they're going to be confident or shy or anxious, that Christmas period, the experiences that they have with visitors over the Christmas period can form long-lasting impressions on them about what they think of people as adult dogs as well. So it's quite important to, as much as we can, try and get it right. So for example, if they are quite nervous and they're worried, and you've got, the whole family comes around at Christmas and they're all over the puppy, leaning over, picking them up, pulling at them, kissing at them, fussing at them, a nervous puppy can then very easily become quite terrified of people just from going through that experience. So that's one to watch out for. The other one is if you've got a puppy that absolutely loves people and gets really, really overexcited and is jumping up and trying to kiss their faces and knocking the toddlers down and just getting very, very overexcited. If we then fuss them and talk to them and praise them, we're then rewarding that behaviour as well. So they're learning then, well, when I say hello to people, what I do is I jump up all over them. That's how we greet people. So they're learning a bad behaviour then. They're learning that this is what we do. And it's too good an opportunity to miss out on almost. It's a time of year when we are going to be seeing lots of different people. So from a socialisation point of view with people, we've got a really good opportunity here to build some confidence with nervous puppies, but also put some greeting manners into place with puppies that are a little bit more confident. So things that I will be doing. I've mentioned before about making sure that they're in the crate before you let people in. And then what I would do is I would get people in and sat down first of all, maybe give them some treats first, and then open the door to the crate to let the puppy out to say hello to them. That way, if they're a bit wary, the puppy can then come over on his or her own terms. So really, you want the puppy making the decisions about whether they want to greet or not. We don't want people forcing themselves on your puppy if they're not comfortable with it. So get people sat down first of all, and then they could maybe have a treat in their hand. And if the puppy's nervous, what they can do is they can throw a treat on the floor for the puppy, and that will help build the puppy's confidence then to see, oh, well, when people come around, I get a treat. And that's a much better way of people interacting with the puppy than reaching down and trying to pick them up and leaning over them, because things like that can be quite threatening for puppies if they're a little bit anxious already. So make sure that you do that with any nervous puppies. Make sure it's in their own time. Any confident puppies, what I would probably do is I'd probably have them on lead, especially if they're big bouncy puppies and you've got little ones coming round, because it doesn't take much for a giddy adolescent or older puppy to knock a toddler over. And then obviously that ends up being another kind of whole thing that you're dealing with. So keep them on the lead, and then that way you can manage any interactions. So you can let them go over, but if they get a little bit too giddy or a little bit too much, you can use the lead then to move them away. So it's not that you're using it as a punishment, it's just a management tool, because when they're little, they've not got any self-control. It's still something that they're learning, and they're not going to learn it over the very short space of time that we've got over Christmas. So we're just helping them make the right decisions. So if they start going up onto their back legs, their front legs are off the floor, straight away you can just gently lead them away with the lead. And if they're wearing a harness, so if you usually wear a harness on a walk, then I would definitely use the lead with the harness in the house as well. That's absolutely fine. And then if they are very giddy greeters, what I would do is I would probably get them to do a sit to say hello. So rather than going over and jumping up and not knowing what to do, work on your sit in preparation for Christmas. So we've got a good like 4 or 5 weeks now, so you can get a really, really good solid sit in now if you start now, or even if you start a little bit nearer to Christmas. We want sit to be their best exercise, because if they're sitting and their bottom is on the floor, they're not jumping up, and it's a much politer way of greeting people. And if you work on that hard over Christmas, you end up with a puppy that when he wants to say hello to somebody goes over to them and sits in front of them instead of going over to them and launching at them on their back legs. Okay, just keeping an eye on time. Right, 10 minutes. Okay, so that's your people greetings. And then we're going to finish off with our poisons. I'm just going to go back again. So yeah, this is something that I've got quite intimate knowledge of because my last dog was a Labrador, and Labradors do usually live up to their names as being ridiculously greedy, and they will eat anything. And yeah, I'm pretty sure if he was given the chance, he would have just eaten a 15-kilogram bag of food and quite happily killed himself. We had plenty of issues with chocolate. They were our main issues, and it was usually chocolate being left out where it shouldn't be left out, that sort of thing. And yeah, taking him to the vets and vomiting. And when I work with the vets as well, I quite enjoy, in a very weird way, hearing the stories of all the different things that puppies and adult dogs have been brought into the vets to vomit up over the Christmas period. On my, I can't remember which social media it was this morning, but there was an X-ray of a French bulldog, not in the local area, who had eaten some fairy lights. And on the X-ray, you could see in his tummy, you could see the little string of the fairy lights in the X-ray. So even if you think they won't eat it, they may well eat it when they're puppies, because everything goes in their mouths. So here are your main ones to be watching out for. So chocolate is a really key one. The darker the chocolate, the worse it is. So if you've got like a milk chocolate or even white chocolate's very, very low risk. The darker the chocolate, the worse it is. So if it's like a really good quality dark chocolate, that's going to be much worse. And obviously, the bigger your puppy is, the less the risk as well. There is an organisation called the Animal Poisons Unit, and that's quite a good number to have in your phone around Christmas time. So if you just Google it, I haven't got it with me right now, I should have been more organised. If you Google it, there is a number on there, and you do have to pay. But what you can do is you can tell them exactly what your dog's eaten, how much they've eaten, and how much your dog weighs. And they will then do the calculations and work out whether you need to then take your dog to the vets or not. So if they've not eaten very much, it might save you a trip to the vets, which is always helpful around Christmas time. Onions and garlic in small doses, it's fine. So often, like as a flavouring, it's fine. It's just if they eat a lot of it. Grapes and raisins is a big one. So obviously thinking like your Christmas puddings and your Christmas cakes as well, anything like that. Mince pies, that's a common one. They'll often get into mince pies because the pastry's nice and sweet, isn't it? But it's the stuff that's inside. So you really need to keep an eye on that one. And then some of these are a little bit more surprising for me. So avocado pips, apparently. Macadamia nuts. So generally nuts are okay, although they are a little bit fatty. So I often recommend as a good Kong filler using peanut butter, but it's just got to be like natural peanut butter, so no added salt or anything like that, or no added sugar. So nuts in small doses, in the same way that they're quite fatty for us. You wouldn't want them to have loads of nuts, but in particular macadamia nuts are a risk. With some peanut butters, they add a sweetener in called xylitol, which is that funny one there that starts with the X. This is also found in chewing gum, and it's found in some sweets as well. And that is really toxic to dogs as well. So if they get into your bag and they eat a packet of chewing gum, or if they get any sweets or anything like that, check that. And if you are going to get peanut butter for them, make sure it doesn't have the xylitol in it. And then alcohol, similar to us, if they have too much. Caffeine, again, if they have too much, and then cooked bones as well. So I'm not going to go into like the pros and cons of raw feeding or not. But the problem with bones, if they've been cooked, is they're more likely to splinter. And that can be quite a common issue around Christmas time because people will give them like the turkey leg or something like that. And if they crunch into that and it splinters, those splinters will pass through the digestive system and they can get stuck then, and they can cause problems then internally. And often with things like that, you don't actually realise until a couple of weeks down the line. It's not always immediate. So yeah, no kind of cooked bones from your turkey or your chicken or anything like that. Okay, right. I'm going to have a slurp of tea, and I am going to open up for questions. Right, so if I leave that one up, so we've got all of the bullet points there. So if you've got questions, you can either pop them in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and you can ask, whichever you prefer. Let me just bring the chat box up. There we go. So we've got 5 minutes, so we've got a bit of time. Right, so everyone's unmuted themselves, so I'll start from the top. So Becky, you're first.
Hi. For Christmas, I'm going to visit my mum, who also has dogs.
Ooh, lovely.
So I was wondering if you have any tips for introducing a puppy to a different household of dogs. Under, I guess, what is a relatively pressured situation because we don't have a lot of
Yeah,
time to introduce them before
yeah,
they have to, get
yeah.
on with it.
So I would try and do a neutral meeting first of all. So I'd meet out the house rather than taking the new puppy into the house because then dogs can be a little bit territorial and protective sometimes. So I would meet at a neutral place like on a field or something like that. I would maybe go for a little walk first. How old will the puppy be at Christmas?
6 months.
Okay, so yeah, so you can definitely do like a good half an hour walk then, can't you?
Yeah.
And that way we can have a bit of a sniff of each other. You can do parallel walking. So if the puppy's really full on and bouncy with the adult dogs and the adult dogs are like, go away, leave me alone, you could just walk with them parallel. There's no harm in letting the adult dogs tell the puppy off a little bit as well. So that's absolutely fine. I would just monitor it really carefully. So I'd be watching interactions between them. Is it quite a confident puppy or a nervous puppy?
We've only had him a week, so we're still
Ah,
figuring that out.
yeah.
So yeah, not too sure yet.
So what can sometimes happen is puppies are really rubbish at reading adult dogs' body language. So adult dogs are saying, pack it in, leave me alone. And puppies go, I don't care. I still want to carry on and play. So you might need to be there as like the backup.
Yeah.
So I would be watching and kind of monitoring almost. And if you think, right, those adult dogs have had enough now, you then take puppy away and you do some separating then. But definitely start with a walk first, neutral territory, and then take them into the house together.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank
Okay.
you.
Right, go on, Jodie.
Hello, nice to meet you. That was mega. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're
Scribbling down. My question is really specific to me. So I was just thinking about your schedule that you said with nap times and then the walk. So Reggie will be like 12 weeks by Christmas. So from a nap time perspective, what is a good aim time-wise, like the morning and the afternoon one?
So at that age, he might only be awake for an hour and then want to nap again for an hour. It might be an hour on, an hour off.
Okay.
You may even need longer naps in between if it's busy. So you may even need an hour awake and then an hour and a half to 2 hours naps, depending on what's going on. But I definitely wouldn't push more than an hour and a half of being awake. I would think that will probably be enough for him.
Okay.
Some puppies do give you indicators, but others not so much. And as I said before, they'll just very easily get overtired. When are you picking him up?
Saturday.
Oh, exciting. Well, if you want to do like a call or anything, obviously we're running a bit low on time. If you want to do a call anytime before, then obviously you're very, very welcome to. If you just drop me a message, so I can always like pop round. Am I already arranged to pop round? Yes. And I've got a book for you as well. So I'm coming round anyway, so we can kind of go through that stuff then, can't we?
Yeah. I was just thinking, from a schedule perspective, I'm like, oh my God, we're going back to toddler days.
I know it is. It's very much like that where you're like, when are they going to nap? We can't leave the house now because they're going to nap. But actually, puppies are quite good at napping out and about as well. So I've had puppies where I've gone to a coffee shop and they fell asleep on my knee for an hour.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure that you make that space for them to have a nap.
Got it.
So, right. Okay. So I'm running out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'll email you over the help sheet, which has got loads of details. But if anyone's got any questions about anything, just send me an email back and I'm happy to kind of go into more detail about anything. Okay. Thanks so much for coming, everyone. Bye.